Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show podcast, coming from right here in our quaint little studio. I am, of course, your host, John Campea. I'm joined in studio today by Robert Meyer Burnett.
Got a little Lynchian hair going today.
By Chris Carr.
Hello.
And Ray Orr is here. Jonathan Voico is not here today. A couple times a year, he's got to do some parent-teacher stuff. So he'll be back again tomorrow. But most importantly, you guys are here. Thank you so much for being here and making our little show part of your day. And here's how today's show is going to go. We're going to start off by talking about a few predetermined topics we have lined up for you guys. Then in the second part of the show, well, we're going to take your live comments and questions. If you have a thought, theory, opinion, or question that you'd like us to address on the show, as long as we deem it appropriate to be addressed on the show, go ahead and fire it on into our tip link at www.streamelements.com/JohnCampea/tip. Send it on in during the show. And again, if it's appropriate, we'll address it in the second half. But here's the good news. The tip link is actually good 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if you're listening to our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or if you're watching this show a little bit later in the day when we're not live, you can still send in a question and we'll just get around to answering it on the next episode. All right, guys. With that down, let's get things started with this, shall we? You know, one of the shows that I know Ray and a lot of people were really excited about was Halo. I mean, a long time ago, Peter Jackson was going to produce a Halo movie. Neil Blomkamp, who did District 9, was originally lined up to direct it. By the way, he had never directed anything at that point. This is long before District 9. He had never directed a thing. Studios gave up on away it went. And then finally, we got one on Paramount Plus. Season 1 was a bit of a mixed bag. Season 2, in my opinion, ended up being much better than Season 1. Even ended up with a 90% rating on Season 2, which, you know, good for them. But then they announced it was done. It was gone. But wait! In the darkness, a tunnel of light appeared.
Wow.
Here he comes.
According to a new report, Netflix is picking up the 2 existing seasons of Halo. And there's speculation that they might want to dabble in maybe making a Season 3. This comes to us from Yahoo Entertainment to write the following. Netflix will be the new home of Halo TV series soon, as the streaming service will offer the first 2 seasons in some regions as of March 1st. Fans hope that the switch also means a 3rd season could be made by Netflix after Paramount Plus decided not to continue with the show last year. Sci-fi fans were left in shock last summer when it was announced that one of the biggest shows on Paramount Plus had been canceled even after the 2nd season had secured a score of 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. Okay. So I'm actually not shocked to hear this. Netflix actually has a little bit of a track record of picking up canceled shows that they felt might still have some life in them and making some new seasons. The 2 that come to mind for me, because we were talking about this earlier, was Lucifer, and they did a pretty good job carrying on Lucifer, and Designated Survivor with Kiefer Sutherland, a show I actually quite liked, and I was very happy that they gave it another season. Now, there's nothing in this report, it needs to be said, there's nothing in this report officially that says Netflix will indeed make a Season 3 of it. This could just be another content acquisition thing for Netflix, where they're just going to have Season 1 and 2. But I think it would be interesting if they took another swing at it. Again, because to me, guys, Season 2 was an improvement. Kind of like Lord of the Rings.
Rings of Power?
Rings of Power to me, right? Season 1, bit disappointing for a lot of people. Season 2, significant improvement. And so maybe there's somewhere to go with it. So I don't know. But Rob, you hear about this. What do you think about them picking up? And what do you think the chances would be of them maybe carrying on with a Season 2?
Well,
or 3, I should say.
One, I think it's cool because I think, like you said, Halo improved. I liked Halo's 2nd season. I enjoyed it.
And you actually watched it?
Yeah, I did watch it because, you know, when you're looking for sci-fi stuff and I came around to it, I liked it. I didn't love Season 1. But here's the thing, like you just pointed out, John, having those 3 seasons is kind of a Netflix formula because beyond 3 seasons, you have to renegotiate a lot, talent deals and things like that. Things get more expensive. But another show they also did that with was a Canadian science fiction series called Travelers.
Yeah, I remember that.
Eric
yeah.
McCormack was a producer on. I loved Travelers, and I thought the third season was really great, and I was hoping they would do more. But it was only they bought it, they picked it up, and it was a one and done season. I recommend it though; it's a good show. So I could see this happening. I mean, look, Halo is still one of the most beloved video games of the 21st century. You know, I mean, everyone loves. I think it's 20. It came out in the 21st century. Yeah. People love that show. People love Master Chief. I mean, he's an iconic. When you think about, there's Seamus, there's Master Chief. I mean, in terms of sci-fi characters, why don't they make a Metroid Prime Halo crossover? Kick some ass.
They're pretty dope.
Now, Ray, I know you in particular. I didn't know anybody that was more interested in the show when it was about to come out initially. How did you feel about it overall by the time it was all said and done? And do you want them to do a third season?
The reason why I'm kind of sad it's going off of Paramount is because Paramount designed if you go into the Halo channel, they have like all the little graphics like in the back, like it looks like
pull the mic a little bit higher up.
It looks like Master Chief's like what he sees through his helmet. They had after shows. I watched all those. I watched all the trailers after watching the newest episode. If there's only like 1 million people that are like me, then this would be a hit. Like
if they only had all these people watching it, it would have been a hit.
I loved everything Paramount did with Halo. Even the first season, I'm a little biased, but even the first season, like there are some episodes that were just awful, like fillers. But what I require if they do a season 3 is they get the same showrunners, because like I was telling Rob before the show, they actually listened to all the critiques and they improved upon it, and I like that for once that they did that. Because season 2 shows how it helped the show. So hopefully they do a season 3, but I do want the same showrunners.
I want to mobilize this 1 million Ray Aura army. How do we do that?
Where's that? When's that coming? Anyway, guys, the question is for you. What did you think about this? I mean, for a TV show to move to Netflix, that's nothing new, but could the possibility exist that it could spark interest in a new season? I think a lot of people think that the second season was an improvement over the first, but was it enough of an improvement, do you think, to justify a third season? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? You know, it is, to me, undeniable. One of the greatest trilogies in the history of cinema is Paddington. And now, granted, I didn't think the third Paddington was on the same level as 1 and 2, but I still thought it was wonderful. I was charmed and delighted, and my heart smiled watching Paddington 3. I enjoyed it a lot. But as you get near the end, when Paddington dies, I'm kidding. Nobody believes Paddington dies.
Just when you thought he was out.
Just when you thought he was out.
Paddington back in.
This umbrella tips over and he drowns. But you know, when you get to the end of Paddington 3, it kind of, without giving anything away, it kind of gives you the sense that the trilogy may be over. I mean, that it might be done. And I thought, you know what? Yeah, probably they are done. This is probably it. But hold on. Apparently that ain't the case, as the studio behind Paddington has just come out. The CEO has just come out and said definitively, oh, there's going to be a fourth film. This comes to us from Pop Universe. It says this: the comments were somewhat hidden in an interview with the CEO of Studio Canal, but CEO Anna Marsh has confirmed that a fourth Paddington movie is on the way. There will be a fourth film, she said. We're thinking about the next movies, plural, by the way, movies, and we're working on a new TV series as well as a stage show musical with Sonia Friedman and Eliza Looney. So this is something Chris likes hearing. How do you get a bear? But that's okay. That's fine. Let's put that aside for a second. Look, I'm not... Ray, can you pull up for me what the box office results of Paddington 1 or 2 and 2 are? And of course, Paddington 3 hasn't opened in North America officially yet. I just got to go to see an advanced fan screening.
Oh, okay.
And
I was just about to ask him, how did you see this?
yeah, and it's absolutely delightful.
Oh, good. Okay.
You know what? Here's what I said about it. The first half has all the charm of Paddington, right? It's got all the charm of it, but you could really feel something lacking, even though it had all the charm. It's the second half of the film where the heart then comes into it, and it's like, oh yeah, this is a Paddington movie, and it's so great and it's so charming, so delightful. Look, I'm going to tell you right now, I love this, and I love it for the same reason that I would love to hear another Hangover movie coming out, even though 2 and 3 were questionable. The question becomes, where do you go with the story of Paddington? And my answer is, I don't care. There are some TV shows and some movies.
Do you want those right now?
Yeah, what were the results?
Well, Paddington was 326.
The first one. Then what was the second one?
Let me get that for you. Sorry.
All right. So 326 million for that movie.
Not bad.
There are just some movies where I don't care.
290 million for
290. So like, with Supernatural, like there's an argument to be made that they didn't need to carry on that show past season 6. Fine. But you know why I love that they kept going? Because I just loved every week hanging out with the Winchester boys.
Yeah.
I just loved every week going and hanging out with, you know, Crowley and hanging out with, you know, all the character, Bobby, whoever it was. I just liked hanging out with them. You can make Paddington 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, and I will go because I just want to go and spend time with Paddington and the Browns. And it's just, and you know what? In a world where we're like, make this movie dark and make that movie this, sometimes it's just great to have a wonderful movie about wonderful people being wonderful. And I walk out of Paddington movies just filled to the brim. Anyway, so Chris, I love the idea of them doing a Paddington 4. I do hope this gets made. You haven't seen 3 yet.
No.
Obviously. Where are you at when it comes to Paddington movies? Do you think they should continue with them? Do you think they will? How do you see it?
They absolutely should. This is just like, it's like chicken soup for the soul. Oh my gosh. It's so comforting. It's like being wrapped in your favorite blanket when you were sick and you got to watch Price is Right every time you get to watch these Paddington movies. It's just like, oh, I'm a little kid again and everything is joyful. Also, I absolutely credit Paddington with really giving Hugh Grant a boost and letting us all see him in such a different light. These films are so well made. They are so much better than they have any right to be.
100%.
They're so charming. And as long as they do keep that heart like you're talking about, I think you can keep doing them. I'm over the moon about a musical because I'm a weird little theater kid. Real Bear, let's go.
How does one do a musical of... Well, how would one do a musical of Lion King? They figured that out.
You know, there's a Shrek musical.
There's
an Elf musical. There's all kinds of stuff. So I would love all of these. And I hope over this time that Ben Whishaw eventually learns to love marmalade. Because in real life, he hates it. And I feel like that's the only ding against him for playing this iconic role.
By the way, speaking of Ben Whishaw, Ann and I, when we got back from going to that Laker game, seeing the first Luka play, Ann's mom was here watching the dogs for us. They love grandma. So we come in and she's watching this movie on Netflix and I don't know the name of it, but it's Ben Whishaw. It's Keira Knightley. There's some kind of MI5
Black
agent.
Doves? Isn't that a new series?
That's exactly what it was. Yes. I'd never heard of it. And it's so funny because like Whishaw is this like agent killer and he's like murdering people and shooting people. I'm like, and I turned to Anna, I said, do you realize that's Paddington? She's like, what? And he's like, then I'll fucking kill him. And like, and no, Paddington. It's like that's all she could hear was Paddington's voice after that. Anyway, Rob, what do you think about the idea of coming back and doing more Paddington? Do they need it or should they just let it be at this point?
Well, like my esteemed colleague Chris over there, I think the Paddington movies are delightful. I really like the first 2 films. And, you know, we used to talk about how it would be one of the great trilogies of all time if they made a third one?
We said if the third one could be on the same level as 1 and 2, it would be in that top 5 greatest. Honestly, I'm not even joking around, guys. Like one of the greatest top 5 trilogies of all time. It wasn't on the same level as 1 and 2, but it was still really great.
I mean, it was definitely worthy of the Paddington name. I mean, like chicken soup for the soul. That's what these movies are. Not everything has to be. You know, we need all kinds of movies. One of my favorite movies of all time is Amelie. Talk about chicken soup for the soul.
Yeah.
I mean, that's in my top 10 of all time. And a lot of people look at me and go, really?
Oh, it's
and
fantastic.
I said, if there's a movie that encompasses my worldview more than any other movie, it's Amelie. And I'd have to explain that. But Paddington has that kind of, it's both for the young and old. it's for everybody. I mean, it's a movie that probably hits you differently depending on when you see it. And I would imagine, I haven't put this to the test, that, you know, when I'm like, if I live to be 80, which I doubt will happen, but if I did, I'd probably be sitting there watching Paddington and finding it just as delightful, but in a different way.
Do you remember the spots that the Queen did with Paddington?
No.
You never saw those?
No.
They're from a couple years ago. Literally, Paddington, they got the actual Queen, Elizabeth, having tea and marmalade sandwiches with Paddington.
Oh, I'm going to Google that.
It was
later.
almost as good as when she did that spot with Daniel Craig, when Daniel Craig playing Bond. But it was great. So now what they need to do is cross universes, because what they got to do is have, when He-Man comes to Earth in the upcoming He-Man movie, then Paddington befriends, and they do a spin-off, a buddy cop movie of Paddington and Fisto on the road.
Oh, you had to go there.
Everybody will love it. It'll be great.
Wow.
It still hits 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, Paddington in Peru.
It has a 94. Yeah, I'm not surprised. The movie's absolutely delightful. Guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? The studio saying, yup, we're going to do a Paddington 4, and even mention movies, plural. They might have longer plans for this. Hey, if they keep making them this charming, keep making it. Whatever you guys think about it, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, we still got to talk about a couple of other things, including the first full-length How to Train Your Dragon trailer has now dropped. Spoiler alert, I loved it. And then the reviews for Captain America, Brave New World are now out, and they're kind of right around where it sounded like they were going to be. We're going to talk about that and a few things more, but before we do, we're going to take a quick second and thank one of the sponsors of today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast, our friends at PrizePicks. Guys, we want to thank a sponsor of today's episode, PrizePicks. All right, sports fans, All-Star Weekend is almost here, and if you're not on PrizePicks, you're seriously missing out. It's the easiest and most fun way to turn your basketball knowledge into real money. With over 10 million users already playing, why not you? PrizePicks is a skill-based daily fantasy game. You just pick more or less on player projections. You think Steph Curry's hitting more than 5 threes, or Giannis dropping more than 35 points? Make your picks in under 60 seconds, and if you hit, you could win up to 1,000 times your cash. Ann and I have been using PrizePicks on football all year, but now we're switching over to basketball. And we like Jason Tatum getting more than 29 points. And now that Luka Doncic is on the Lakers, I'm going to take over on 8 assists. And the best part is, even if you miss one pick, PrizePicks Flex Play lets you still cash out. And hey, don't forget about Taco Tuesday. Each week, PrizePicks discounts select player projections by up to 25%, giving you even more chances to score big. Download the app today and use the code CAMPEA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today and use that code CAMPEA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. And thank you to our friends at PrizePicks for sponsoring today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast. All right, guys, with that down, let's move on to this, shall we? You know, I became very intrigued when they announced that they were going to be doing a live action How to Train Your Dragon. Then they dropped a little while ago that tiny little short tease. And then they dropped a trailer for the trailer at Super Bowl. And today, the full trailer for How to Train Your Dragon has now dropped, and it's online. Here are my thoughts. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was great. You know, I remember, Chris, we had talked about, you know, when we do eventually see the other dragons, do we think they're going to do them the way they were done in the animated thing? And I said, no, I think they'll probably make them more look traditional drag. Nope. They totally took the design of those dragons and they made it delightful. And it was in the trailer for the trailer, but that one shot where the mega dragon comes out, like you felt the weight of it, right? Mm-hmm. Like you felt the scope of it and the weight of it. The heart jumps when he reaches out and touches him, when he's building the makeshift flap wing for Toothless, when he's just all the part of it. And he's like, that scene, by the way, in the trailer, when Gerard Butler, who I'm so glad is reprising the role of the dad, is, they've killed hundreds of them. We've killed thousands of them. And it's like, you know what it reminded me a little bit of? Remember Ender's Game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That, like, I remember the last scene of the movie when, like, Harrison Ford is talking to Ender, and it's like, well, we did this, what, but we did this, like, sort of thing. So it kind of reminded me a little bit of that.
I have a 4K Steelbook of Ender's Game.
Yeah,
I am not surprised, not
Shocked, I
surprised
say.
at all. But also, like, what really got me was the music. I'm watching this trailer, and that music plays bum 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 as they're soaring through the clouds, and I felt the hair on my arms start to stand up, and I just think this is going to be wonderful. And somebody wrote in the other day, and they asked, "What do you think is going to do better? Do you think How to Train Your Dragon is going to do better, or do you think Lilo and Stitch is going to do better?" I still stand by. I think Lilo and Stitch has the potential to be $1 billion film. We'll see. I still think Lilo and Stitch will do better, but I wouldn't doubt at all if How to Train Your Dragon is better. Doesn't do better, but is better. I love this trailer. I couldn't have been happier with it. Anyway, so I got a big kick out of it. Rob, you had a chance to see it. What did you think about the How to Train Your Dragon
Dude,
trailer?
I too love the trailer. When he puts his hand up and turns away, like you mentioned that, I kind of got choked up right there. I was like, I bought into this. I love the design of the dragons. I think it works specifically for this particular movie. I mean, if it looked like the Vermithrax pejorative from Dragon Slayer, it wouldn't work. Or Smaug, it wouldn't work. That would be a different movie. I liked all the actors. I liked seeing Gerard Butler. I loved seeing all of his facial hair. I love the effects look great. The tone of it looks great. I have only one criticism. And I was watching this movie and everybody's so clean cut and not dirty. I'm like, does everyone have razors? I mean, I know they're supposed to emulate the animated.
Well, they're children.
I know, but everyone is so fresh-faced and bushy-tailed, and everyone always looks freshly shorn and like they've got product in their hair. And I'm like, wait a minute, we got to dirty these people up. It's still like them,
That doesn't bother me as much though as like shows like Daisy Jones and the Six, where you're like, everyone has perfect teeth.
Yeah.
And it's the 1970s, and y'all are doing the worst drugs.
I totally.
Your noses and your mouths should be so messed up.
But no, I really like this trailer, and my enthusiasm for this movie, John, more than a trailer has taken my enthusiasm and made it go higher. It's definitely this is a first weekend movie for me.
Chris, so what about you? I know you've been very excited for this film. What did you think about the trailer now that we finally got it?
I think it's beautiful. I think breathtaking is the right word. It's so stunning. And I love that it is this reimagining of the dragons that we saw in the animated film and the consequential series that came from it too, and making it so they make sense in this world. This is CGI done right for me, where, okay, you still look fantastical, you still make the kind of original IP link make sense, but you seem to fit into this world that they've built. And I do like that it is a little whimsical, and we've got like the ridiculous facial hair and things like we had in the cartoon show as well.
Yeah.
I think it's lovely. And the shot you pointed out too, I love that is an absolute shot for shot from the original film too.
Right out of the movie.
Yeah.
Because that's one, and this is where I mentioned before my Super Bowl party, a couple people were like, it's just the same thing as the thing. You would want that shot. It's iconic. It's such an important moment. You want that to be exactly that moment.
Well, because of what it means, the humility there.
Exactly.
He touches and he realizes that's why I got chills, because I'm like, oh, it's
such a moment of vulnerability. Now, I am interested to see how else we defer as the movie goes on, because if it is just shot for shot of the animated film, I am going to be going, well, what was the why? Why did we want to do this? But from what I saw from that trailer, it is very exciting looking. And I also couldn't get over how much the actors sounded like the voice actors.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
It was wild.
But you know what? To that question, though, about if it ends up being kind of like a shot for shot, here's I was thinking about this morning. I don't know why this came up in my head, but just the medium change to me makes it a different experience. You know what I mean? Like, I can read a book, and then if the book gets translated onto the screen and it's almost like it's perfect to the book, it's still a completely different experience. And, to me, movies are experiential events. And so when I watch an animated version of something and then I watch a live action version, it's the same story, but it's a different experience. And I'm really curious to see how they can create that in the live, but I'm sure they're going to take some liberties.
Absolutely.
They're going to do some things different.
Yeah.
I got to ask you guys a philosophical question. We always bang on Disney live action remakes, and that's exactly what this is. It's a remake. It's not a Disney. By the way, I love the logo at the beginning that went from into the DreamWorks logo. That was so cool. But how is this different from, say, a Lilo and Stitch remake or a Snow White remake or a Lion King remake?
Question.
Isn't it kind of the same thing?
Here's the thing, though. None of us were. I don't think anybody became disenfranchised with the idea of Disney live action remakes until the track record ended up not being great.
Right. Yeah, it's true.
Then we got to the point of
Cinderella. I didn't even want it, and then I went and saw it.
Cinderella was great,
Yeah.
right? Cinderella was great. I personally liked the 2019 Lion King. Although that's still animated. And I didn't think Beauty and the Beast was terrible.
No, not at all.
But overall, their track record is spotty. They don't have a track record yet,
true.
right?
Yeah.
So that really becomes the difference.
And I do have to say, look, I love the animated movies, and as I've said, the 3D versions on physical media are great. But this there was something about this. I don't know if it was just a charm. It was you know what? It got me the scene with the girl, I forget her name. They're just talking.
Astrid.
And they're just talking back and forth. There's that quick exchange. It's also, I think, right out of the animated film. There was something about their two faces interacting. I'm like, I'm in. I believe this exchange between these two characters. And I was like, in a trailer, it's tough to buy into that. And they got me.
I had a question. What if this movie is a hit? Do they go on and remake the second one, or should they go and do a different story? I'm thinking different story.
Good question.
Well, it depends how much money it
Just
makes.
take this franchise to a different, make it its own after.
But it's a great question, Ray. But here's the thing. If part one works, they're going to go, we made a, say, $700 million film. I'm not saying it will make $700 million, but let's say it does.
Green light.
Because we did a fairly faithful adaptation of the first film. Well, it worked. Let's do a fairly faithful adaptation of the second one and see where that goes. So I think it's a great question, but I think if it works, I think they stay faithful.
Are they based on books or are they original IP?
I think it's original IP.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either.
And there was 3, right? There was 3
there are
movies.
3, and they're great.
And they're all great.
So if they follow that track, they should go on and continue the story.
It is a book series.
It is. See, I never knew that. By the way, as a
Cow.
trilogy, it is such. Do you guys remember the end of it?
Yeah.
It's such a satisfying ending with Hiccup and Astrid and I believe their kids in a boat going off to visit. It's like this is such a great ending, such a satisfying, happy, beautifully wonderful ending. Which, by the way, I still remember when I saw the third one, I thought, in 10 years they could make another one. Like, this is a great, satisfying ending, but even with this ending, they could make another one 10 or 15 years down the line. But
well, it's so rare for us to see animated characters age and grow.
yeah.
And we have that a little bit with like the Toy Story franchise of seeing Andy move on and things like that. But typically things like The Incredibles, right? You go back to almost moments before, even though 10 years have passed in between movies. Animated characters tend to be kind of isolated and frozen in time, which is magical, but it's also really cool to still have that growth and journey with these kinds of characters.
Yeah,
as
because
well.
technically speaking, Bart Simpson should be going in for his first colonoscopy.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's just, that's how old he is now. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What did you think of the How to Train Your Dragon trailer? I don't think it's like the best trailer we've seen in the last year or so, but I thought it was absolutely wonderful. How are you feeling about it? Have your thoughts on the movie itself moved at all? Have you gotten more interested in it, less interested in it? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? Well, last night, the first social media reactions for Captain America Brave New World came out, and I did a little reaction watch video where I, along with the viewers, we started tracking the first reactions that were coming out.
It's a good show, by the way.
Thank you. Had a good time doing that last night. Well, this morning, the full review embargo lifted for Captain America Brave New World. and they're right around kind of where I thought it would be. Now, I was telling Rob that last night, I went through about 30 plus reactions, I think. One or two of the reactors absolutely loved the movie. One or two of the reactors absolutely hated the movie, and everything else was kind of in between. The general consensus was, it's pretty good. You know, there were things like action was great. Anthony Mackie's wonderful. But some people felt like this just feels like a poor man's Winter Soldier. Or it feels like this movie's just here to tie up loose ends from other movies. But it also did this pretty well. So it was kind of mid. Now, when I first opened up and took a peek at the critic rating, it was sitting at 45%, which I thought was a little bit lower than I thought it would be. Now, I just reloaded it again. It's gone up 7%. It's now over 50%. It's now sitting at 52%, which is right around, like I said to Anne asked me last night, like, what do you think the Rotten Tomatoes score is going to be? I said 60. After reading the reactions, my sense is 60, and it's within about 8% of that, sitting at about 52%, which means a tiniest of majority of critics seem to like it. But again, it's kind of one of those lukewarm things. Like, the ones that don't like it don't hate it. The ones that like it don't love it, but it's pretty good. And I remember, Rob, we were saying, and I said this several times last night on the stream, I said, look, I've never thought this movie was going to be great. I've had fears that it could be terrible. So I told the audience last night, I said, look, if I walk out of this movie going, you know, that was pretty good, I'll be happy. Like, that's all you got to give me. Give me that. Marvel right now on the runway has Daredevil, Thunderbolts, Fantastic Four. I think those are going to be three winners. I think those are going to be three big winners for them. And I said last night during the show, I said, here's the thing. Not once in the lead up to Captain America 4 have I ever felt that either Disney or Marvel were particularly really excited about this movie. I've never once felt that they had this overabundance of confidence in it. I'm glad they did all the reshoots they did, because I'd hate to think about how bad the movie was. So good, they made it a passable movie, I guess. But I said I've never felt that they were super excited about it. The way they seem to be very excited for Thunderbolts, the way they seem to be very excited for Fantastic Four, and the way they seem to have a lot of confidence in Daredevil. So I think this is going to be one of those train station movies, Chris, where it's like they want to get to the station and then move on and get through it. And if it cannot be terrible, look, I told this to Rob, the only thing I want, Chris, I just don't want to walk out of the theater feeling the same way I felt walking out of the theater for Quantum Mania.
Yes.
If I can at least avoid that disappointment and come out going, you know what? Not bad. If I can come out saying that, I'll be thrilled. So this is right around where I thought it would be. Are you surprised to see this? Better than you thought? Worse than you thought? How you see it?
It's pretty much where I thought it was going to be. I felt like this was going to be probably a polarizing film for a lot of people. What I've loved from all of these reactions, though, is that the vast majority of them talk about how great Anthony Mackie is and how he does deserve the shield. That Sam Wilson is a great character, and it's about time he has this moment. The movie has some great story moments. Some people didn't enjoy where it was political or wasn't political enough, is what I've been gathering from what people have been saying.
I literally saw both.
Yep.
I saw one guy saying that there's just too much politics, and I saw another critic saying they were too afraid to really go into the issues. And I'm like, well, what are you going to do? How are you going to make people happy?
Exactly. So I've seen a whole bunch about that. I've heard, too, that the CGI is less than appealing. But, you know, as long as I have a good story for Sam, that's really what I'm after in this one. Honestly, I just need this to be like a C+. That's what I need. I want everyone to get this up to like a 70. I don't need this to be the greatest Marvel film ever. I just need it to get the train going again.
Rob, how do you think about this?
Well, you know, a buddy of mine saw it last week, and he said it was pretty good. That's what he said, and there was a lot of stuff he liked in it. And I love Anthony Mackie's Falcon. I mean, I loved the character. I thought he was great. And I've liked him in leading roles, like we talked about Twisted Metal, how cool he was in that show, that TV show.
Oh, yeah.
And
right.
hey, one of my favorite hot toys is the Falcon and Winter Soldier, Captain America with the wings. I love that figure. He's displayed prominently on my shelf. And will be getting that new figure. I want to like this movie, and I am predisposed to liking political thrillers. And I've been banging on about how the Marvel Cinematic Universe has not dealt with a celestial in the ocean, and now there's adamantium, and so much the better. I mean, if people are talking about it doesn't lean into the politics enough, I'm like, yeah, the divination of adamantium across the nations of the world is a real political problem I see in our world, so why shouldn't it be in the MCU, right? But I hope it's good. I mean, I know, for me, I bet this is going to be at Black Widow level. I don't love Black Widow, but I like it.
That's a perfect example.
Yeah.
I mean, if it wasn't for Red Guardian, I'd probably dislike the movie. But overall, I didn't mind Black Widow. It was fine. That's if I can get that out of this movie, I'll be okay with it. Yeah.
I mean, I really enjoy the first like 3/4 of Black Widow until you get to the apocalyptic ending when the helicarrier flies apart and whatever, and you're like watching them all in free fall. I'm like, this is too much. Like I really liked Yelena and Black Widow pulling their, like, working in European cities. I love watching spies in European cities, and I want to see some spy action. I want to see some countries in conflict. I want to see, fighting over a celestial. I want to see Sam Wilson flying. I want to see the leader. I want to see Giancarlo Esposito and the Red Hulk. I'm sure I'll like it. I'm not gonna love it.
I'm curious to know what you guys think about this statement that I made last night. And this is how I feel about it. Like, somebody wrote and said, do you think it's important, or how important do you think it is that this movie sets us up for Sam to be the leader of the Avengers moving forward? And I said, not at all, because Sam should not be the leader of the Avengers. A moniker is not a leader. The person is a leader. And I think it would be a horrible decision. As much as I love the Sam Wilson character, love this character in the MCU, but let's face it, up until this point, Sam has been a sidekick to Captain America. He's been a sidekick. He's not suddenly, you literally have full-blown Avengers, and all of a sudden the sidekick becomes the leader. Why? Well, because now you've got the star on his chest. That means that. Like, I said, think about it this way, Rob. In the world of the MCU and the Avengers and the hierarchy, take Rhodey. Rhodey, Avengers-wise, outranks Sam.
But he's a Skrull.
Was a Skrull. Military-wise, Rhodey outranks Sam. Rhodey is an experienced veteran, leader, all that kind of stuff. There's no valid argument to be made that a Sam Wilson character should be made leader of the Avengers. Take all the other Avengers out of it. Just put up him and Rhodey. There's no comparison. Rhodey is the guy you pick then to be the leader if it's out of the two of them. And if it's just out of the two of them and he can't even win that, I just don't see any way you make Sam Wilson the leader of the Avengers.
I disagree.
Yeah, I think you can make Sam the leader. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean,
no, you go for it, right?
No, well, go ahead.
No. I'm just saying, if Steve Rogers trusted Sam enough to hand him the shield, I trust in Steve Rogers, and and plus he's a military.
But what were his options? That or
guy.
the psycho killer Winter Soldier?
I think you also, though, you have those two people who were sidekicks take up the mantles of their superiors, however you want to kind of view it, right? We've got Rhodey taking the place of Tony. Theoretically, we've got Sam taking the place of Steve, theoretically. I like Sam, though, taking up a leadership role, especially because he is, quote unquote, average with a really good heart. And I think that's an important thing to at least be a linchpin in the team. Maybe not the leader, but I do think you can get him there. He does counseling for veterans with their PTSD. He has the best of intentions. And I feel like that's the kind of person you want to have near your leadership roles, and it makes sense for me for somebody like that to be in the mix of making those big world-changing decisions.
And no romance involved with Sam Wilson.
Currently.
Yeah.
Currently.
You never know. But also, look, I could see
Anthony
them
Mackie
also in
gonna
a
be macking on
co-leadership
something.
position because they're both military. And I think that what the thing about Steve Rogers was the man fought in World War II. he led troops into battle. So in addition to being the kind of man he was in his core and in his heart, he was also a battle-hardened soldier. And on the field of battle, he was an obvious leader, whereas in Sam and Rhodey, you have two military veterans that have a lot of experience. So maybe they could co-lead. What they don't have is power. They don't have the awesome, they're both just men.
Right.
Whereas Steve Rogers is a super soldier, and then I think you need at the head of the Avengers, you need somebody that has power, that can be your who, like Steve Rogers could lead you into battle.
But wouldn't it make
because he was a meta-human.
Wouldn't it make more sense if a person like that directed the Avengers? Because sometimes it was weird that Steve Rogers was calling orders when he was probably one of the most powerful ones in the group.
Right, but he was also the one with military experience who led troops into battle.
Right, true.
I mean, it depends. It's going to be really interesting to see, John, how they move forward with the Avengers. Who are in the Avengers? Because it seems like, other than Thor, who will have to come back to Earth.
Well, according to Valentina, they ain't coming.
Yeah, they're not coming. So wherever they're going, I mean, they don't even have. I mean, Sentry. Well, they can use.
No
Sentry.
way.
I mean, what's going to happen? I don't know. All I know is we're going to get some great new Hot Toys figures.
Let's take a moment here. Let's just read some to give you a sense of the kind of feeling that is out there. Let's just take a moment and read through some of the reviews that we've had come in. United Press wrote, Mackie carries his first movie as the headlining hero effectively. Even up against screen legends like Ford, it's certainly Captain America's movie. There we go. Newsday liked it, saying, compared to some of the studio's recent misfires, this new entry is at least passable.
Oh,
there you go.
And that seems to be the general consensus.
yeah,
It's passable.
that's what we want to hear.
Cinemania wrote, Captain America Brave New World is a compendium of action, nostalgia, and gamma radiation that doesn't rank among Marvel's best movies, but it's not among its worst either. All right, take that. Culturist writes, great actors like Nielsen and Lumbly can only add so much to a production that never quite works as either an over-the-top comic book movie or a movie intimate meditation on masculine vulnerability. Again, didn't like it, but didn't hate it.
Masculine vulnerability is exactly what I got from the trailer.
Question real quick. Did anyone say if there was a post-credit scene?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
I actually, unfortunately, last week, I got told what the post-credit scene was last week. Look, I'm not going to give away what the post-credit scene is.
But here it is.
But I'm going to tell you. Because often people ask me the question, do I need to stick around for the post-credit scene? The answer is no. You don't.
Okay.
Because it's not a post-credit scene that sets anything up. All it is a reference that is totally unnecessary. I said this last night. I said on the show, a scene that is a setup means in order for you to have this, you need this scene to set it up. The post-credit scene of Captain America 4 is completely unneeded. I would say it is not something you need to stick around for.
Plus, douchey douches have already put it on Twitter.
Have they? Is it already out there? Well, I'm not surprised about that. That always kind of happens. So, look, I'm going to say this. My enthusiasm level for Captain America 4 has not changed. I'm seeing it tomorrow. I'm looking forward to watching it. And as long as I can just walk out and go pretty good. Rob, has any of the reactions, the reviews thing, has your level changed at all, or is it pretty much where it was?
No, I mean, and I look at movies at scale. Everyone's looking at Endgame or Infinity War and comparing them to that. I compare action films to things like Brian Bosworth and Stone Cold. If I get something that's at least, it is the greatest movie ever. And one of Hendrickson's finest performances, Craig Baxley killed it.
Best.
But when you're looking at these movies, I try and judge a movie for what it sets out to do, what it accomplishes, and how much I enjoyed when I was watching it. And I do that with every movie, whether it's $1 million low budget horror film or it's a big budget science fiction epic. Did it succeed doing what it wanted to do? And if this gives me, if they succeed in that, I will be happy. And you know what? I love watching Anthony Mackie anyway. I just like him.
He's great.
Yeah, he's so charismatic.
I've always loved him in the role. And, I want to see him. Like, I love the interplay we've seen with him and Harrison Ford. I've loved the brief conversations.
The behind the scenes stuff or the actual
the clips.
Yeah,
the clips between the two of them. There's real chemistry there. There's real great back and forth. I mean, hell, I'd love to see, Captain America and the President a Lethal Weapon kind of movie where maybe make a team up with Thunderbolt Ross and Captain America, solve the world's problems. I don't know.
Chris, has your needle moved at all with the reaction? Has it gone down? Has it gone up? Still same place?
Steady as she goes.
Right there in there. What about you, Ray? You're still excited about tomorrow?
Yeah. I mean, I've always been excited just to see Harrison Ford, and it still remains the same. That I want to see what this Red Hulk is about. I'm not too familiar with the character, so I do want to see Harrison Ford and Anthony Mackie.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Question is for you. As of right now, the critic rating on Captain America 4 is right around where we thought it'd be. Little more than half the critics like it. Right about half of the critics don't really like it. Not many people seem to really love it or hate it. So is that where you expected it to be? I'm still looking forward to seeing it. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, it's time for us to move on to the most important part of our show, which is, of course, taking your live comments and questions. But before we do, we're going to take a quick moment here and thank one of the sponsors of today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast, our friends at NordVPN. We want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's episode, NordVPN. All right, let's be real. There's nothing worse than wanting to stream your favorite show or watch a live game only to find out it's blocked in your country. But guess what? With NordVPN, that is never a problem. With just one click, you can switch your virtual location and access content from anywhere in the world. I have loved using NordVPN. Whether I'm traveling and using public Wi-Fi or just shopping online, NordVPN keeps my personal info safe and private. By switching my location, I can even save money on flights, hotels, and subscriptions. It's like a cheat code for getting the best deals. NordVPN is the fastest VPN in the world, so there's no buffering when I'm streaming. Plus, their threat protection feature blocks malware, trackers, and phishing attempts, keeping my devices safe 24/7. And with just one account, I can protect up to 10 devices, so my whole setup is covered. So to get the best discount on your NordVPN plan, head to nordvpn.com/John Campea, and our link will even give you 4 extra months for free on the 2-year plan. Plus, there's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Links in the description. Check it out now. And thank you to our friends at NordVPN for sponsoring today's episode, as I was talking to Rob, of today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast. All right, guys, with that down, let's get on to the most important stuff here, shall we? Which is taking your live comments and questions. We're going to get things kicked off here with Anonymous, who wrote in, the movie that wins Best Picture should be a masterpiece that will be remembered after 20 to 30 years later. Well, there's a problem with your logic there, but we'll get to that in a second. Lately, lots of Best Picture winners that no one remembers even after 5 years. Nomadland was the best movie that year. Doesn't matter about anything else. That was the best movie that year. Coda was the best movie that year. Green Book, I think Green Book deserved the Academy Award. I liked Denora, but should not be in the conversation. You're absolutely wrong. First of all, when you bring up something like, you're not wrong if you weren't all that impressed with Denora. That's fine, because movies are subjective. If it didn't work for you, it didn't work for you. Nothing wrong with that. But what I'm saying is, when you bring up something like movies that win Best Picture should be remembered 20 to 30 years later. Well, here's the logic flaw with that. You won't know if a movie's going to be remembered 20 to 30 years later until 20 to 30 years later. When Shawshank Redemption came out, we were just talking about Tim Robbins as we were on the commercial break. When Shawshank Redemption came out, there weren't a lot of people that thought, oh, this is a movie we're still going to be talking about in 30 years. But we are, right? You just don't know. Like, do you think when, I almost said, what's the movie? Why am I freezing the name of the movie? Let's do the time warp again. Rocky Horror Picture Show. That's what it is. Okay. You think when Rocky Horror Picture Show, anybody said, well, people are still going to be talking about this movie decades from now? Nobody thought that, but here we are. Everybody knows Rocky Horror Picture Show. So you simply don't know. I don't know when a movie comes out if it's something that we'll still be discussing 20 or 30 years later. The other fallacy with the argument is the fact that you're assuming that every year there will be a couple of movies that people will talk about 20 to 30 years from now. That's a fallacy. That's just not true. What you do is, all an Academy voter can do, all you and I can do, is every year say, right now, in our context, what movie did we think was the best movie this year? And then you'll vote for it. That's it. Not, what movie do I think might be talked about 20 years from now? That's not the question. The question is, what movie do you feel is the best movie this year? And that's a question 8,000 voting members of the Academy have to ask themselves, and then you just vote for what you think is the best movie of the year. And I would suggest this, that just because you don't agree with the pick doesn't mean they were wrong. It just means that you would have picked something else. And again, you need to keep in mind that there is no definitive right or wrong answer, because all film is subjective, and all an individual voter can do is say, I felt this movie was the highlight of excellence in filmmaking this year, and vote for that. And if they feel it's Anora, absolutely they should vote for Anora. Anora deserves a Best Picture win. Hey, I've got no problem with Brutalist wins either. I've got no problem with, obviously I think Dune 2 should win, but this idea that you need to vote for the movie that'll still be talked about in 30 years. You and I both, we are both clueless as to what's going to be talked about in 20 or 30 years until it's 20 or 30 years. Anyway. All right. Next up. We've got MJ and Campea fan writes, I hope the Michael Jackson biopic rocks. Leaving Neverland was BS. Michael Jackson Square One on Amazon Prize debunked it. And no, it all depends on who you believe. So just leave that there. Must see. Michael Jackson donated $500 million to charity. Doesn't matter if he donated $500 million to charity. While alive, and was found not guilty on all charges at his 2005 trial. Remember, accusations aren't gospel. There were also settlements. Look, I am a Michael Jackson fan. Remember that. You're talking to a Michael Jackson fan, okay? But everybody seems to look at everything through the lenses of their own preconceived biases. And this was bullshit because this debunked it. Well, that depends on your point of view. And you can say, well, he was acquitted on these things. Remember, being acquitted is different than being found not guilty and all that kind of stuff. But there were also settlements paid out. Some people would look at that and say, there you go. Other people would look at that and say, that proves he just wanted to get it out of the way. I mean, look, the fact of the matter is, nobody should ever act like they know unless you were there in the room. I wasn't there in the room, so I don't know. I will always be left with the knowledge that I won't ever factually know. There's a lot of things out there that suggest one thing, other things suggest the other, and that's fine. And I'm going to feel about it the way I personally feel about it. But if you're somebody else who feels like, I feel like the evidence slants the other way, okay, that's cool. As long we can be on opposite sides of that, as long as both of us know that neither of us know, right? And so I think that's important. Anyway, all right, what's next? We've got Tumbling Turdnado writes, hey, John and friends. On the latest episode of Two Filthy Casuals with Chris and Amy, they asked, what is adamantium? We all know what they are. Tiamat's dingleberries. Am I right? Hashtag analamentium.
Analamentium.
I don't... It's going to be interesting to see how the MCU differentiates between adamantium and vibranium. Now, again, I don't want to hear it about, well, the Zod is the comics. Comics are the comics, the movies are the movies. They're two different things. The way I think they're going to make a distinction, the main distinction between vibranium and adamantium, is that adamantium is the stronger substance, but it doesn't carry all the other attributes that vibranium does. Because remember, vibranium's primary value in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is its power generation, right? Like, vibranium in the MCU is a power source, first and foremost. It's not an armor, first and foremost. It's a power source, first and foremost. So my guess is, as somebody who hasn't seen Captain America 4 yet, is that they're going to make that distinction saying adamantium is purely the strongest, substance. It's going to be the hardest stuff. And vibranium is still this maybe even more valuable stuff because it's also a power source. I don't know for sure. I'm just guessing. All right. Next up, we got Anonymous, who writes, watched it and I thought it was mid, but I'm sure you will like it, but have a lot of nitpicks. I'm curious if you will agree that the other leads other than Mackie and Ford, such as Danny, Shira, and Sosha, were underwhelming. Don't know. Won't know until I actually have a chance to go and see the movie myself. All right. Next up, we have a question that I've been asked like 17 times in the past 72 hours. Jojo Giraffe writes, have you had a chance to watch the recently leaked James Bond audition from 2007 Bond, exclusive footage of Henry Cavill, Andy Starr, Sam Worthington, Rupert Friend? Fascinating. Sorry for sending this question last night. Stream, my fault. So I have been asked this question. I don't know, guys. How many times has this come up now? So I will say this again. No, I have not watched the footage. We all know that Henry Cavill was the runner-up to Daniel Craig to being James Bond. And listen, I love my boy Henry, but Daniel Craig ended up being my favorite James Bond of all time. The perfect amalgamation of the suaveness of the Roger Moore Bond with the badassness of the Sean Connery Bond. Daniel Craig was a perfect mix of those two, and that's why he's my favorite Bond of all time. But yeah, it was actually really cool seeing who almost became our new James Bond a couple of times. I would still love seeing Henry Cavill as new James Bond, to be honest with you. All right. Next up, we got Darth Cactus writes, never thought I'd have the dialogue of Revenge of the Sith living in my mind rent-free in 2024, but that Anakin versus Obi-Wan AI rock song that's gone viral on TikTok, I'm never on TikTok, so I don't know what we're talking about. Got caught humming it at work. AI is dangerous, man. We got to ban it. It's funny. We were just Ray and I and Rob were just having this discussion off camera about AI. And listen, there are certain things with AI that need to be banned. You should not be allowed to make AI that makes it look like somebody, like a real person, is in something and doing something they did not agree. Like that needs to be like not just banned, but hey, if you do it, you're going to go to jail sort of thing, because people's lives can get ruined at some point if we're not careful. But yeah, so I haven't seen the thing we're talking about in particular. All right, next up, Anonymous writes, how many Oscars do you think Dune 2 will win? In my opinion, Dune 2 and Wicked should have swept the Oscars, with Denis Villeneuve winning Best Director. His snub is more egregious than Affleck's. No, it's not. It's not. Because Argo was good for the year, but Dune 2 is a generational classic. The reason... I don't disagree that Dune 2 is a generational classic. I think it's my favorite film of the last 10 years. But the reason the Ben Affleck snub was even more egregious is because that year, Ben Affleck literally won every Best Director award there was, including Best Director at the Directors Guild of America Awards. He literally won every Best Director award, and then his movie Argo won Best Picture, and Ben Affleck, the winner of the DGA Best Director of the Year, the winner of Best Director of the Year at almost every other award ceremony, did not get nominated at the Oscars.
Didn't we have something that kind of was like that with the actress from Killers of the Flower Moon, where she like got all the pre-Oscars awards?
But she was nominated at the Oscars. It was like, remember, Ben Affleck didn't even end up getting nominated.
Oh, okay. Right, okay.
So, I mean, yeah, it ended up being between Emma Stone and why am I forgetting the girl's name from?
I want to say Lily Gladstone.
Lily Gladstone.
Okay.
Thank you. So, but it wasn't, she didn't sweep all the
I thought she did.
Emma Stone picked up a couple. It looked like Lily Gladstone had the momentum going into the Oscars.
Because she won the one before it.
Yeah, it was definitely a 2-horse race. It was definitely between Emma Stone and Lily Gladstone, and Emma Stone won. But the Ben Affleck thing literally won everything.
And didn't even get nominated?
His movie won Best Picture.
That's insane.
And he didn't get nominated.
That's insane.
As good as Dune 2 is, and you've totally got me on your side on that, it forever will be that the Affleck one was even more egregious because of that. Anyway. All right, next up. We got Cantello, who writes, I've just seen Captain America here in Cebu City. Is that a Filipino city?
Cebu.
Cebu.
Yeah.
I like the movie. It is a mid-tier MCU movie. The only post-credit scene... okay, it's not saying what it is. The only post-credit scene is after all the credits. Love how the movie was scheduled to start at 12:45, and the movie itself started at 12:46. That is a beautiful thing, and that is exactly what should happen in movie theaters everywhere. All right.
God bless the Philippines.
Let's see here. T Magic writes, one of two. Hey, John, I wanted to share a theory that I heard from Eric Voss of New Rockstars. We have some of the same representation, Eric and I do. He pointed out an interesting detail about the Thunderbolts logo. Originally, the asterisk in the title, somebody else brought this up before.
Right. And I noticed it now, too.
Originally, the asterisk in the title had 6 points, but now it only has 5. He believes the asterisk was initially a placeholder for a potential title change like Dark Avengers, and the reduction from 6 to 5 might suggest a shift. Like the death of a character, possibly Taskmaster. What are your thoughts, everyone? I don't think it means anything. I don't think it means anything in the same way that we've seen a lot of movies when they first start getting marketed, that by the time the movie's about to come out, the logo itself has changed a little bit. Either a color has changed a bit. I honestly think it's completely meaningless. I really do. I'm not saying the asterisk is meaningless. I'm saying the move from 6 to 5 is irrelevant. I think it's completely meaningless. I don't really think it means it. You know what it very well could be? It very well could be that literally the guy who put out the next poster
Used a different font.
just used a different font. And it literally... What? We were just talking about something. What was the movie, Ray? We were just talking about something in the last couple of months where it's like there was some insane mistake that got made prior to the movie coming out. Do you remember there was something like that? I can't remember what it was.
If it comes up in my head, then I'll let you know.
But I'm not even joking. I think there is...
Was it a poster? Did it have
it was either a poster or something. Anyway.
Right.
Somebody's saying Wicked. What was it for Wicked that they got wrong?
Oh, it was just a box of the toy.
That's right.
That's what it...
That's right. That's what it was. So for those of you forget, the first round of Wicked toys came out. On the box, they put in the web address, and they put wicked.com. The problem is the web address for the movie is wickedmovie.com. Wicked.com is a porn site. And I'm not even kidding. I will not be surprised. I will not be surprised at all if at some point we find out that it was literally just somebody put in the wrong asterisk. And now all of us are like, ooh, what does it mean? It was a 6-point asterisk. Now it is a 5-point asterisk.
I will say in the last trailer, there is 5 of them standing there, right? So I don't know. At the end, right?
Right,
Isn't
but it
5?
has 6 of them at one point.
Yeah, it probably has nothing to do with anything. I don't know. I've given up on the asterisk. I've given up.
Next up, we go to Darth Cactus, who writes, this community has been on fire with its recommendations this year. Loved Better Man, best biopic in recent memory. Companion, Landman, Dexter Original Sin, nearly finished season 2 of Upright. Millie Alcock made me cry. And then Moving On to Paradise. I'll tell you what, Companion, Landman, Dexter Original Sin, they've all been winners for me. I never did see Better Man. Again, I heard it's quite good.
Yeah.
I heard it's a good movie, and I'm glad that it is. It's just that they made such a horrible, horrible creative decision to, instead of just doing a Robbie Williams, is that his name? Robbie Williams?
Yeah, Robbie Williams.
Instead of just doing a proper Robbie Williams biopic movie, which would have made a hell of a lot more money if people understood, instead they decided to, for no reason, have him represented as a monkey. No, John, you don't understand. It's because Robbie Williams once said that he kind of felt like... It doesn't matter. It was a bad decision. It left the potential audience that was being marketed to confused. It's like, this just looks dumb. and it became one of the biggest flops. I think it might end up being the biggest box office flop of the year because it was a terrible decision to do that. It's a shame because I've heard the movie's actually really quite good.
Right.
So did you have any interest in going to see this movie?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Like Better Man?
Yeah. Forget about hearing that it was good. Just the marketing itself. Were you interested in seeing it?
I indeed, I'm completely opposite with you. I thought it was a cool idea to actually have the guy as monkey. Maybe not for everybody, but that's the only reason why I wanted to see it. Because the artist, I have no idea who the artist is, but I was about to say to the writer, I'm disappointed you didn't complete the three-peat. It should have been Better Man, Land Man, and then Dog Man.
Oh my, that's if you want to really get the trifecta, you got to include Dog Man.
I do want to see Dog Man now because of the reviews that I'm seeing on Rotten Tomatoes. It seems like something I would like. So. Yeah,
the reviews for Dog Man are actually not bad. And so again, I've heard Better Man is actually a pretty good movie.
Yeah.
I'm not slagging on the movie because I've heard it's good. I'm slagging on the decision to make the movie and structure it this way because you were never going to get an audience out to it. Yeah. And can you actually look up for me and then get back to me? How much did Better Man actually end up making worldwide? Anyway, let's keep things going right now. Aussie Alex writes, Saw Cap 4, action was really great. I've heard even the people who didn't really like the movie, they all say the action's quite good in it. Especially Japan scene. Mackie, who I love, isn't there yet for me as Cap. Ooh. The writing holds this movie back massively, very exposition heavy, and it looked awful in parts. Overall, I liked it more than I was expecting.
I got that for you. What's interesting is it's 19 million it ended up with, but it opened with 18 million. So...
No, that's got to be an error.
Domestic opening not 18 million, 18,000. Sorry.
Okay, 18,000. Right.
Sorry. And then it ended up with 19 million. I'm sorry, I didn't see the other.
So overall, worldwide,
right?
Better Man made $19 million.
Yeah.
Guys, tell me again, you don't think it was a mistake if you don't think that if they just did the exact same movie with an actor playing Robbie Williams instead of a CGI monkey, you can't tell me that at minimum on its worst day, that movie wouldn't have made triple. I mean, it's just, it is what it is. All right. Let's see. Dildar the Glorious writes.
The Glorious.
You know what sucks more than Blade not coming out? That we'd be having Blade 2 by now. Sorry, Ray. Here's the thing.
Well done. You're right.
When you understand that Blade was announced over 5 years ago, it is actually not preposterous at all to think we literally could have been having a Blade 2 coming out this year. That's actually not, it's a depressing thought, but it's not a crazy thought.
We've had 2 Captain Marvel movies.
No, Captain Marvel came out before I think Blade.
Oh, okay.
Blade was announced, I believe. I think it did. I could be wrong about that. Okay. By the way, there's an idiot moron in the live chat by the name of Felix Gomez, who, as a moron does, because they're completely stupid and they don't have ears or brains, apparently, saying, John judging a movie he hasn't even seen. Listen to me, fucktwit. I was very clear. I don't know if the movie's good or not. I haven't seen it. All I've said is I've heard the movie is very good. I've said what I am trashing on is the decision they made to make it a CGI monkey because nobody was going to go see it. I said, which is a shame because I've heard the movie is really good. But when you get idiots, what are you going to do? Idiots are going to do what idiots do, and some people just don't listen. So I don't know. Be very careful crossing the street because apparently you don't know how to look both ways. All right. Next up, we got Matan Valinsky, who writes, one of the many faults of The Acolyte is that they advertise it as some prestige TV series, an Andor with lightsabers, but it ended up being more as a young adult show and a very bad one. I would agree with that. Like, it might actually be that I think they were going for prestige show. I think they were kind of going for that. But you're right. They already knew Like they were watching the show, they already knew that what they had wasn't that, and yet they still decided to market it as such. Look, I would though suggest, Matan, is that even if they marketed it properly, it wouldn't have changed the fact that it was still just a bad show, right? Even if they marketed it as a more lighthearted, kind of wacky, whatever, even if they did that, I don't know that it would have changed the ultimate end game, which was it was just a bad show.
And some of the Star Wars shows, I think, were just made just for the oohs and ahs and not really adding substance to the universe.
No, it was just bad. I mean, it was just really, it's just a bad show. All right. Next up. We've got PDP.
PDP.
Hey, John and crew, with the He-Man movie coming out, do you think there will be a Fisto popcorn bucket? Now, that would be a collector's item.
Fistful of Fisto.
Woo! Fisto.
What's
Man,
up?
there's a marketing opportunity there for that. I know this. If Ryan Reynolds was in charge of this movie, there would be a Fisto popcorn bucket.
Besides all the jokes, what upcoming movies are we actually excited to see a popcorn bucket for? I mean, there's a bunch of movies. I don't know. I don't know why I brought up that question, but it is interesting to see what they do with some of these popcorn buckets moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really one that stands out like, oh, that would make I mean, it's really every movie could make a great popcorn bucket if they're creative enough with coming up with it. Like so I don't really have one that I'm thinking, oh, I would love I can't wait for Superman.
Right, but you can't see.
Can't really think of something that's the most natural idea for a popcorn bucket.
It'll probably be the Daily Planet that you take apart the top of the thing and then something.
That's not a bad idea.
But horror and sci-fi has the market on these popcorn buckets. They have the most material to probably make something cool out of, I think.
All right, next up, we've got Anonymous writes. First time writing in, do you think it's possible that the asterisk in Thunderbolts will be revealed at the end of the film to be the new Avengers? No. And they all get new superhero style outfits? No. The new in-universe Avengers group? No, absolutely not. Until the next Avengers film? No, absolutely not. And you know, some people have brought up that, you know, the name will be Dark Avengers or the name will be West Coast Avengers. And I've mentioned this a couple of times, but let me bring it up again. The most valuable IP for Marvel right now is Avengers, right? Those are the films that make $1, $2, close to $3 billion each. That is by far their most valuable asset is the term Avengers. They are not going to water it down by start putting the Avengers label on a whole bunch of other things. That's why you're not going to see a movie called Young Avengers. You're not going to see a movie called West Coast Avengers. You're not going to see a movie called Dark Avengers. You might have movies that comprise those characters, but it's going to have a different name. They're not going to just start slapping the name Avengers on a bunch of things because that overall waters down the liquidity of the IP, right? The liquidity of the tangible benefit of the IP name becomes diluted. And that's why I think they're going to avoid doing stuff like that.
I got a question coming out of his question. It's like, how do you feel about costumes and uniforms now? Because we've evolved from how they looked in the first Avengers up until now. Do you see them going away at any point? Like, at all? Like because it just seems silly that, okay, some of them have
superhero costumes going away?
No, in these MCU films. Because it seem like, I feel like if there's a function to their uniform, put them on. But then other than that, I think about like Scarlet Witch. It's like she has those powers without putting on that costume. You know what I mean?
They'll never go away from that. I mean, you can have the odd character that doesn't do the costume, but it's part of the whole.
True.
It's not just about individual characters. Like the whole part of the genre is that's what the history of these characters are. Is they have their costumes, they have their looks. They don't have to be completely accurate to the comic books to be good, but they'll always have them. They'll always have them. All right. Let's see here. Next up, Chip Crisper writes, "Hey crew, the subject of too many characters crowding Superman has me thinking of The Fugitive. It has nearly 24 absolutely important characters that aren't remotely wasted. All of them sing in their roles like a or you probably meant fit in their roles like a puzzle piece. Anyway, Superman will be okay. Bring on the filthy. You know, that's the thing. We've talked about that a few times, is that a lot of people say, man, there's just too many characters in Superman. I'm like, there's no more characters in Superman than there are in any other movie. Almost every movie you watch, go to the IMDb page. There's at least 15, 20 more characters listed. The only difference between those movies and this is that in Superman, you recognize some of who the characters are. That's the only difference. It's not about how many characters are in there. It's about how does the director utilize these pieces on the board. If they use them well and effectively and efficiently, having 20 characters in a movie is not a big deal, as long as your main focus is still on the right characters. So yeah, this whole thing I remember that question came up back when the X-Men came out. I remember back when the 2000 X-Men movie came out, a lot of people saying there's just too many characters. It's like, there's no more characters in this movie than there are in any other movie. Like if you go back and watch like one of my favorite films that has one of the smallest casts, Noises Off. If you've never seen Noises Off, guys, it's tied for my favorite comedy of all time with The 40-Year-Old Virgin. And you guys got guys like Michael Caine, John Ritter, Christopher Reeve, Carol Burnett, Cousin Larry from
Bronson Pinchot.
No, Cousin Larry.
Oh, Cousin Larry.
Yeah, the other one. And then like it had, I don't know, about 8, 9 characters in it. That's one of the smallest casts you're ever going to see, but it was like 8 or 9 characters and they were all had major roles and and it's one of the greatest films of all time. Yeah.
It was Paul Reiser, was he? No.
Paul Reiser wasn't in that.
Okay.
No. Anyway. Oh, and it's also got the guy, you guys remember Marcus in Indiana Jones? Like Indiana Jones' buddy at the university? He's in that too, and he's great. So if you haven't seen it, go see it. But yeah, there is absolutely no worries about there being too many characters in Superman. Absolutely none. All right. Next up, we've got Cleveland Streamer writes, by the way, your Cavs are doing real good this year. If Spider-Man 2002 was made in 1985, which cast would have worked better? Pete, Michael J. Fox, or Matthew Broderick, Mary Jane, Leah Thompson, or Mia Sara, Harry, Crispin Glover, or Alan Ruck, Norman, Thomas Wilson, or Jeffrey Jones, Ben, Christopher Lloyd, or Ben Stein. I'm not really sure I like any of the picks. Michael J. Fox could have been an interesting Peter Parker.
He is a little short, though.
That's fine.
Yeah, but
Spider-Man's not supposed to be a giant.
Yeah, true.
Right? That one wouldn't be bad. I would have been okay with that. It would have been a very different career from him, though. All right. Next up, we've got Anonymous writes, Cap 4 from the director of Cloverfield Paradox. What could go wrong? What could happen? What was Feige thinking? Deadpool was Reynolds movie. Well, yes and no. Anyway, Deadpool 1 or 2 didn't save the Fox universe, and neither will be Deadpool 3 with MCU. Yeah, it absolutely does. And it absolutely did. Deadpool 3 completely changed the narrative around the MCU. The MCU needed a win when Deadpool and Wolverine came out, and it did, and it completely changed the tone. Everybody's got really, really short memories. But before Deadpool and Wolverine came out, everybody looked at the MCU with a lot of doubt and a lot of skepticism. And that's understandable. Like, hey, listen, I include myself in that. Totally understandable, because we got some great stuff from the MCU, right? Like, let's not forget, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 made over $800 million. Yeah. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness was pretty much near $1 billion film. WandaVision is absolutely spectacular. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is still, Shang-Chi, I still think is the best thing they've done since Endgame. there have been some big wins from Marvel, but there's also been more than a normal amount of okay stuff, right? More than they've ever done before. So the narrative before Deadpool and Wolverine came out was a little bit more on the skeptical side. Since Deadpool and Wolverine came out, the entire narrative around that you could feel the excitement back in the room again. As somebody who gets messages from thousands of film fans every single day, I can tell you that the energy level in the room changed after Deadpool and Wolverine. It was a much, much, much needed win.
Would you say that everything that wasn't connected or trying to follow the main phases, the main story of this particular phase,
there hasn't been a main story of this phase? That's the problem for a lot of people, right? Yeah. Like that's been the problem for a lot of people, is that this phase hasn't had a story. Nobody's been able to tell you what is the story of this phase, even though we're like 10 plus movies into it. So, but listen, I would also say this. The Marvel Cinematic Universe did not need saving. They needed a momentum shift. They didn't need saving. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 just made $800 million. Doctor Strange 2 made about $1 billion. Some of the Disney Plus stuff has been great. Some of it's been absolutely terrible. So it hasn't needed saving. It just hasn't been firing on all cylinders like it had. But Deadpool and Wolverine absolutely changed the energy level in the room. The enthusiasm for the MCU shut up. And listen, with Captain America 4 maybe being okay, that's all right. Disney knows they've got they've got Daredevil coming up, they got Thunderbolts coming up, and they got Fantastic Four coming up. And people are far more excited about those today. And I think part of the reason people are so excited about Daredevil and Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four is specifically because Deadpool and Wolverine came around when it did and reignited some of the excitement for the MCU again. So yeah, I that's just the way I see it. You got to look at it bigger picture. You got to look at it bigger picture rather than finite. Anyway, that's just my thought on it. Okay, next up. HBK Cooking with NXT writes, I saw Cap 4 today. Not great, but pretty good. Is a fitting description. Tone similar to Winter Soldier and Falcon and the Winter Soldier show. Also answered why Bucky has that pin in the Thunderbolts trailer. Miles better than Sony's recent efforts. Well, I mean, God, wow. I hope so. God, I hope so. But man, when you got to go bring up like Craven to say, well, at least it's better than Craven?
Yeah, let's not sell the movie.
That's not exactly the biggest vote of confidence. At least it's better than Craven.
I mean, Captain America did have a monumental task in following up Deadpool, right? So, I mean, it's hopefully it doesn't shake the ship too much.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it will. Because honestly, unlike, say, I don't know, but like the thing is, even if Captain America 4 was terrible, and it pretty much sounds like it's not terrible, right? Even the people who are giving it negative reviews are saying, but it's not terrible, right? So it sounds like it's pretty good. But even if it was awful, like let's say Captain America's Brave New World was absolutely garbage, like almost Craven level bad, I don't think it hurts the MCU that much, because I don't think there was ever a strong belief amongst the MCU fans that this was going to be one of their stronger films.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like I have never sensed from the movie fans that anybody expected Captain America 4 to be great. We were all just kind of hoping it would be good. So even if Captain America 4 ends up being a total disaster, which it doesn't look like it is, but even if it was, I honestly don't think it does that much damage to the MCU, because I feel like nobody was ever expecting that much. Now, I keep wanting to say Deadpool, but if Daredevil comes out, and if Daredevil is bad, well, then there's a problem, because everybody is super excited for Daredevil. Everybody has high expectations for Daredevil, right? They didn't have that for Captain America Brave New World. Nobody's had Captain America Brave New World at the top of their most anticipated list. So there's only minimal damage that can actually be done. But if Daredevil sucks, and oh my God, if Fantastic Four sucks, and heaven help them if Deadpool and Wolverine had sucked. If Deadpool and Wolverine had sucked, it would have been a big problem for them. But honestly, I don't think there's that much damage that can be done to this. So we'll see. Next up, we have Anonymous writes, call it a hot take or whatever. And to be clear, I'm not dismissing the quality of their previous work, but to me, bringing the Russos and Marcus and McFeely back for Avengers 5 and 6. By the way, I think they're only bringing back one of the two. Yeah. Marcus and I can't remember which one. They brought back Marcus or McFeely. It's one of the two. Back for Avengers 5 and 6. And having RDJ back doesn't feel like it's being done because they think it's the best choice, but because it's the safest choice and because whiny fans demanded they return. I'm hoping for the best, but I'm also afraid this is going to be the Rise of Skywalker trying to appease people who hated The Last Jedi all over again. I'm going to be honest with you, Anonymous. First of all, let's call out the obvious. Doomsday and Secret Wars could suck. They might end up being terrible. They might. Okay, now with that being stated, I don't know, how is it a bad idea? Like, forgive me if you will, but let me throw out a sports analogy. How would it be a bad idea to bring LeBron back in? Like if LeBron had been out for a month due to a foot injury or whatever, he's part of the family. He's part of the LA Lakers family. And, is it a bad idea to bring them back? Where is the questionable logic in bringing back in the directors of Civil War, Winter Soldier, Infinity War, and Endgame? One would have to say that if they're available, not bringing them back is the questionable decision. Like, I'm not saying at all that you had to bring back the Russo brothers. I'm not saying they didn't have other options or whatever. But if you have a choice to have LeBron on the court or not have LeBron on the court, Kevin Durant would tell you you're a damn fool if you don't have LeBron on the court, if that's an option. And listen, Kevin Feige has always been a guy. Remember, Kevin Feige is the guy, even though the world was screaming for a new Deadpool movie, for years, Kevin Feige kept telling Ryan Reynolds, no. Not that not going to do another Deadpool movie, but they didn't have the right idea yet. Other studios just would have rushed it and said, yeah, whatever you want, Ryan, let's go. But Ryan Reynolds has publicly stated, Kevin Feige kept telling me no. Like, we would go to him with an idea, Kevin Feige would say no. Went to him with another idea, Kevin Feige would say no. Deadpool and Wolverine, or at least Deadpool 3, could have come out a couple of years earlier, but Kevin Feige kept saying no until he heard the right idea. And then when Ryan and Sean went to him with the idea that they ultimately had for Deadpool and Wolverine, then Kevin Feige went, that's it. That's it. Why do you think we haven't gotten a Blade yet? Because Kevin Feige still ain't convinced they came up with the right story yet. Which only tells us you never should have announced it until you did have the story you wanted, Kevin. But Kevin Feige is going to do the same thing with the new Avengers thing. It's like, look, they knew they had to pivot away from Kang because the Kang story just wasn't working. And so then they came up. Kevin Feige does not just greenlight something for the sake of it. Right? There's a reason that the Marvel Cinematic Universe winning record, they all haven't been wins, but it's a reason their winning percentage is way higher than any other franchise.
It's like when you get someone to fix something in the house, like plumbing's off, and then you find that person that actually does a good job. You of course will consider them for the next job. I mean, I think Marvel's well aware of where they're at right now, and I think they just positioned themselves to actually succeed with these picks. I don't agree with some, like the Robert Downey Jr. I'll have to see, but I do see where they're coming from. why they chose
Oh yeah, to me it's an absolute no-brainer. I mean, like if that becomes an option, and the Russos had an idea, and Kevin loved the idea, then listen. If Kevin was a guy who was just let's just go with it, then we would have had a Deadpool 3 years earlier. That's all I'm saying. Anyway,
and a Craven and a Madam Web.
Remember that those had nothing to do with Kevin.
I know, but I'm just saying that's what happens when you go with it.
Yeah. All right. Next up, Walter Balls writes, to anyone that loved Anora, I loved Anora, should see the director's previous 2020 Red Rocket with Simon Rex. I have not. Filmed just south of my Texas town. If y'all thought Anora was filthy and funny, wait till you see a washed out porn star try to adjust to a small country living. I'm going to tell you right now, Walter, I'm not familiar with Red Rocket, and now I want to see it desperately.
Wasn't Simon Rex the guy in MTV? He started out as MTV and like.
Oh, I'm Canadian, man. I don't know anything about MTV.
Never mind.
Sorry about that. All right. Next up, I'm definitely going to go and check this out as soon as we're done the show. Last question of the day comes to us from Arsh, who writes, some Brave New World stats. A Rotten Tomatoes of 52% is the third lowest for the MCU, ahead of Quantumania 48 and Eternals 50. The critic average 5.5 is tied for the bottom of Quantumania. The Metacritic score of 44 beats the previous low of Quantumania 48. We had this big discussion about this about 2 or 3 weeks ago, is that I think people also, when they're scoring, and I think that people also score the MCU differently now. The fact of the matter is, here's the unfortunate thing. I remember this one time, Usain Bolt, who some of you may not know the name, he was the world's fastest man for a long time. He ran this race and won the gold medal, but it was a slower time. It was actually a significant slower time than one of his all-time best. And I remember people in the track world going, Bolt just doesn't have it anymore. Bolt just isn't. He won the gold medal. He won the race. And yet the discussion around it, I remember around the sports community at that time was, oh man, isn't it a shame how bad Bolt is now? Oh, he used to be so fast. Here's the thing. Previous success will often color the perception of our current levels. Previous success, some people call it being the victim of your own success. And I honestly think, to a degree, and I think it's natural, that the incredible heights that the MCU has attained, when the MCU puts out something that is substandard by its standard, we tend to measure it by its own previously ridiculously high standard. That is just something we as people do. And that's where the saying comes from, being the victim of your own success. And I think to some degree when it comes to critic scores, and again, it's understandable, I think the MCU is a little bit of the victim of its own success. Listen, I personally think the MCU has made things worse than Quantumania. I personally think the MCU has made things worse than Eternals. I actually quite like Eternals a lot. But I also think today Marvel is measured and scored not necessarily on their own merits, but rather the insane success they had previously had. Now, I'm just saying that as a fan. I'm just saying that as a speculation. I'm not saying there's any cold hard proof of that at all. I'm not. I'm just saying it seems to me as a fan that my perceptions kind of they might be the victim of their own success a little bit on that. They're judged on a different scale than other movies are.
And you know what's funny about some Marvel movies is like there's some that like I completely just didn't like or thought I didn't like, and I go back and watch them because they're on TV or whatever, and they're not that bad. Like Age of Ultron. Like I didn't think I liked Age of Ultron that much, but every time it's on TV, someone's playing it, I'll watch it from wherever it's at all the way to the end.
I'll tell you what, I actually like Age of Ultron more and more every time I watch it. I still don't think it's like a top 6 or 7 MCU film. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But every time I watch it, I watch it, I'm like, why didn't I like this movie that much before?
Yeah, because there's some
It's
reviewers
actually really quite good.
Yeah, there's some reviewers that completely destroyed it, and I think it was just an expectation of what the Avengers before, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, I like that movie. It's so hopefully some of these bad Marvel movies may grow on me later on, but right now it's not. I think the bar has been lowered for like judging these Marvel movies. Do you think? Do you think that people have lowered a little bit?
It could be, but we'll again, victim of its own success.
Right.
And all right, guys, that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show podcast. Not going to lie to you guys, this has been a challenging show for me because I'm trying to do it with a full crew in here, and Jonathan's not here. I've been running all the graphics and ads and camera switching and audio while I'm trying to host the show. I'm really fried, right? I'm so mentally stressed out right now. So thank you for enduring and being patient with any of the technical snafus we had. I did my best. Thank you guys so much for being here and making our little show a part of your day. Big special thanks to Ray for being here.
Yeah, it sounds like it's pouring outside right now.
Oh, is it? Oh,
Yeah,
there might
did
be
you just hear
raining
the
out. Yeah, listen, people in LA, they don't get a lot of rain. And hey, big special thanks, of course, to Chris and Rob who aren't here right now. They will, of course, be back again tomorrow. But most importantly, big thank you to you guys for being here, making our show part of your day. Don't forget to come on back and join us again tomorrow for the next installment of the John Campea Show. So that'll do it for us for now, guys. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.